back for today's shave, which is brought to us by Fine Platinum. What I'm doing is I've got the old triple milled hard puck. This is no longer in production, but it's beautiful soap, does a good job. Our razor today will be my Blackland Vector, probably my best razor. And we're gonna keep talking about interesting stuff in history. What we're doing today, this is the 30th, there's kind of a one-day lull in the action. But what's happening is, on this day, the Mecklenburg resolves. Remember a couple weeks ago we talked about the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence? Well, the fact of the matter is that the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, there are no surviving copies of that. There's no real evidence that it actually took place, but we're pretty sure it did. But on the 31st of May, 1775, the Mecklenburg resolves were adopted. Now that's separate from the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, but only kind of. A lot of the same points were probably covered. The document that they produced on the 20th probably wasn't there, but the same players were there, and they did the same thing again. They declared independence from Great Britain, or the British, and decided they're not going to pay taxes to them, and just all this stuff. And the difference is, this is Mecklenburg resolves, is something that for sure happened. And copies were sent to Philadelphia, which is, like I said, no direct evidence that the Mech deck was. And that's kind of what happened there. And it didn't make waves. You don't hear much about it in the notes of the Continental Congress. And I think maybe, and what we're thinking, that it might have been just a little bit radical, went a little further, was a little bit more angry. So the Continental Congress didn't adopt it, but there are some thoughts that pieces of it were adopted into the Jefferson Declaration of Independence. That's what I'll call it, because he wrote it. See, these resolves were so radical. Let me look at the notes here. Because at the time it was written, dang it, I'm going the wrong direction. I get so excited about this other stuff. At the time this was, because it's still 1775. We still got a lot of history to go. At this point, even John Adams was still hoping for reconciliation. Maybe if we talk this out, we can come to a resolution, or we'll be a protectorate, maybe not necessarily a colony, because the British were kind of heavy-handed in how they how they dealt with things. And that likely is from the communications gap between the far-reaching tendrils of the British Empire. They're all over the world, you know. We were just one of them. Granted, we were pretty profitable colony, and so the British really wanted to keep us as a colony. They didn't really know how to deal with, you know, direct acting, very straightforward people like has arisen in the colonies. And it takes 5 or 6 months to get any communications back and forth. So you have some strong-minded generals doing stuff. Then it takes, you know, months for the fallout to hit Parliament. Parliament, I think, was trying to be reasonable, kind of, sort of. They were kind of at odds with the king in that regard. Later on, we'll find that the American Revolution was a bit like America's Vietnam. At first, there was some support for, well, let's get these rebels, kind of take care of them. They're rebel rousers or malcontents. Let's take care of them. But as time went on and British forces were getting killed, the war was expensive because it was across the Atlantic Ocean. I think that it'd take a couple years, but and that happened in the United States too. It took a while, but the expense and people finding out people were dying, people started to say, you know, maybe we should cut our losses. And that's something we'll be looking for coming up. But our real thing today was that document from North Carolina was pretty far advanced for their time. It wasn't where Continental Congress wanted to go right now. Eventually we will. But they were just about 2 years ahead of their time as far as what was included therein and what was how it was phrased. But look, at that's a shadow of something to come, and that's what we'll call the Mecklenburg Resolves, is kind of a turning point or focus of what's going on here. And know that this is happening all over the colonies. Mecklenburg just happens to be very well documented. I'm sure there were meetings, not necessarily in New York, but some of the other more rural colonies. There was a lot of this kind of discontent and wanting to break with the crown, especially when Lexington Concord news was feeding out. They say that the British are really starting to put the boot to us. We need to do something, and these were men of action, wanted to do things. So that's where we're at today. There's more, a lot more history coming up, and we'll be covering it in one way or another. I'm Major Rich, shavingcodger.com. If you're making me on my YouTube channel, Safety Cat Studios, leave a like, subscribe if you're so inclined, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.